Hey everyone, Aaron Stewart, Data Access Golf, the live show, I guess. I did the podcast earlier today. It is up on iTunes. Look for Data Access Golf up there. Gonna do it separate now, right? We're gonna do the video separate from the podcast just because when I did the video and tried to do it, it sucked. So anyway, we are gonna get in it today. Obviously, Rory McIlroy had a big week. We're gonna talk about that real quick. So let's just dive. Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. Yeah, we're gonna go. Rory McIlroy just did an amazing job over the weekend to go into the final round with the lead and to get it done like he did. It was a kind of dominant performance that we got used to seeing earlier in his career, where he just looked better than everybody else, right? Where that's when we started to talk that Rory McIlroy was the next Tiger Woods and all that good stuff. And it just kind of never materialized. Excuse me, we'll talk slower. But yeah, so we wanted to jump into it. I went over all the data this morning on the podcast. It's very similar data, but we're able to do it with video, and we're able to do it with and kind of go over and look at a little more in depth because we have the ability to throw it up on the video. So we'll go ahead and do that now and dive right into it. I guess first and foremost, I don't know if you watched it, but off that first tee, Rory was playing with Webb Simpson. And Webb Simpson, obviously a very accomplished player, a major winner, all of that. And I wasn't exactly sure how it was all going to shake out between the three of them, just because Rory has been trending well, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't exactly sure. He hasn't looked very good in final rounds recently, but this one just, I mean, it was unbelievable to see him. He stepped up on the number one tee and ripped that drive to what, 40, 50 yards of the green. And then you've got Webb Simpson who laid back a little bit, but I mean, he was looking, I don't know exactly what the yardage was, but it was like 140, 50, maybe 30, 130 yards between where Webb Simpson was and where Rory McIlroy was. And just the data on that, the percentages on that, on if you were that far behind who you're playing with all day long, you're not going to fare well. Where Rory's flipping up some tiny little wedge and Webb Simpson's got, you know, a long iron or a hybrid into a green, it's just not going to go well, right? You're just not going to. And so I kind of felt like early on that Rory's power and dominance, and then to absolutely take your driver and hit it as well as he did, we'll see that he was quite a bit better than his average for 2018 through the week. And when you've got that kind of power and you're more accurate than you normally are, you're going to do very, very well. And obviously Rory did. So I'm going to jump really quick over. I've thrown a presentation essentially up on my iPad. And so we're going to take a look at some of the data and go over some things that we didn't do on the podcast, but that's the difference between the two shows. So let's do that very quickly. I'll bring it up. Let's see, it's right here. Cool. Okay, so there's my iPad, and it's just got a little presentation that I've thrown up here on here. But I just wanted to go through a couple of cool things about Rory's career, in case we didn't know. Most of us do, but I went through Wikipedia and pulled out a couple things just to get to know Rory a little bit better. But Rory was number one in the world for 95 weeks in his career, and if he keeps playing the way he is right now, we expect him to go back to number one pretty quickly and in the FedEx Cup. Matt Kuchar obviously played well last week, but if Rory plays like this, you know, good luck. Rory's a four-time major champion. We know every time the Masters comes around, we talk about him needing just one more Masters, just needing one Masters for him to have the career Grand Slam. But he's got one U.S. Open, two PGA Championships, and one British Open. So just needs the Masters, as I mentioned. He's one of only four players, to win 3 majors by the age of 25. Joining the group of Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, pretty good company, and then Jordan Spieth, who did it recently, obviously after Rory McIlroy had done it. So Jordan's the last one to have done that. And then Rory has played for Europe in 5 5 Ryder Cups, and has played quite well. The most memorable contest probably being against Patrick Reed when they went back and forth at each other. That was amazing match play golf. Very cool. So yeah, just a little brief history of Rory so we get to know him a little bit better. So moving on, the first thing we like to do on Data Mondays is talk about what the win did for them. So we can see here in the World Golf Ranking, he was ranked 4th. Interestingly, he was ranked 4th in FedEx Cup as well. But he essentially moved up to number 3 in the world with the victory, basically jumping over Justin Rose. So Justin got bumped down to 4th now in the world. And in the FedEx Cup, he jumped up to 2nd. So pretty amazing, cool stuff there. Pretty simple. And then I love to look at this consistency rating. For me, I always had kind of a struggle trying to figure out where these players kind of fit in the hierarchy of the tour. Because you basically just talk about the players that are playing really well that week. But who is playing well consistently throughout the week? And we can use the FedEx Cup to kind of do that. But this is who is playing consistently well throughout their entire career. That's what this consistency number works out to. And it really shakes out kind of cool. And I'll share a little bit with you that I see that the text is quite small, so you probably have a hard time reading that. But so Rory has played in 162 PGA Tour events, and he has made the cut 140 times. And that's a consistency percentage of 86%. Earlier this year, he was at 84%, so this is an increase in his consistency number. He's had a really good year. And then I've got this consistency scale that I kind of made up and came up with. But you've got these legends who made 90% and above, and that would be Tiger Woods. I'm just using the folks that have won this year. Tiger Woods is the only one who has made 90% of his cuts or more. Then you've got this elite range, these elite players. I was going to go tier 1, tier 2, all of that, but Tiger is in such a, I mean, what do you do? Tier 0 for Tiger at 90%. So I'm just going to say legends, 90 plus. And then you've got these elite players. And I do think that you'll agree with me that these players are elite. People like Brooks Koepka, Rory McIlroy. You've got Francisco Molinari with his win earlier this year, kind of creeped up on this list. Dustin Johnson, Phil Mickelson, Justin Rose, who I mentioned earlier, dropped to 4th in the world. And also Patrick Cantlay with his last win moved up into this 80% consistency rating. Solid players who are on that next tier, you're looking at like J.B. Holmes, Paul Casey, a Kuchar, for example. They're right in that 70 to 79% range. The good players, the ones that we've heard about a little bit, but kind of go in and out, Kisner, McDowell, Palmer, Na, kind of give you an idea that way. And then those in the 59% and below are guys that are probably risking losing their cards if they don't do anything drastic. And we've got 3 players who did something pretty amazing, right? In Connors, Honma, and Kang. They each won this year to pick up a couple years of exempt play. So maybe they can secure their card going forward. They've definitely done it for a couple of years, but unless their game gets a little more consistent, they will continue to struggle. So that's what this consistency number does, kind of identifies those that have been consistent over their career. Rory, obviously, he is 2nd on the list, and we'll kind of look at that later as far as his consistency number goes. So moving right along, so this is a benchmark review. Obviously, I'm kind of known for these benchmarks, and again, this is quite a small screen, so I apologize. I don't know if there's a way to make that bigger or not. Ooh, dear. That's not what you want to do. If there's a way to make that bigger or not, it doesn't look like it. So we'll just do the best we can. I'll figure out a way to make it so it's a little bit bigger going forward. But these benchmarks have been created for us to be able to measure our game against PGA Tour players' stats. These are all based on 2018 numbers. And to kind of give us an idea of where our game should be as amateurs compared to the PGA Tour pros. Now, I didn't go and say, hey, here's the average PGA Tour pro. I didn't go out and did that, but I did go and create these benchmarks that are, so we can say that our games are tour quality games. We have a tour quality precision in our games based on these numbers. And so these benchmarks then identify areas in our game where we probably should work on those, because if we work on the areas of our games that are weakest, that gives us the greatest ability to get better and enjoy the game more. And all that we're about here at Data Access Golf is creating as simple a practice and strategy to get better at the game so we can enjoy it more in as little as time as we've got. We are all 9-to-5ers. We work. We're not professionals. We don't have the opportunity to practice every single day. So there has to be strategies and systems in place. And that's kind of my whole business, is about creating systems and strategies for entrepreneurs to make them more efficient. And I've applied that same process in my background of being in organizations and management. I've applied that same process into creating systems to make us get as good as we possibly can with the amount of time we have. Okay, so that's what these benchmarks are made up to do. And I think that they work very well, and they've held up very well all year. So those of you that are just joining us, that's what these benchmarks do. What we'll do is we'll look at Rory's performance this week compared to what he did all of 2018, his averages there, and compare them to the benchmarks and kind of see. You can see two areas here. There's two areas in our benchmarks where Rory wasn't quite up to the task, right up to our benchmarks. But this gives you a very good idea of what these benchmarks can do. And Rory, as somebody who makes the cut 86% of the time, you would expect his numbers to be green and be quite high against our benchmarks. Okay, so, all right, so first off, in the tourney, Rory McIlroy hit 66% of his fairways. In 2018, he only averaged 56%. So you can see that he was 10 points better, 10 percentage points better for the Canadian Open than he had been in 2018, so very good. Our benchmark there is 55%. So Rory is right there on our benchmark at 56% for his average. If we're anywhere below that, we would want to work on our driving accuracy. And players, just to kind of give us an idea of what we're talking about, players who hit fewer than 55% of their fairways are Phil Mickelson, Tony Finau, and Jimmy Walker. All right, and so next we're going to go to greens in regulation. For the tournament, Rory McIlroy hit 76% of his greens. And in 2018, he averaged 66%. Our benchmark is 65%. So again, Rory only averaged 1 point higher than our benchmark. Just to give you an idea, these benchmarks are pretty tough. If your game's above these benchmarks, you literally don't have to worry about your game in that area. Pick an area in which you're weaker than these benchmarks and work on that. Rory McIlroy, then, say our benchmark is 65%. He was above both, but close, right, for 2018. But in the tournament, 76% is killing it. He did very, very well, as we know. So for this tournament in sand save, he was less than our benchmark. He only made 40% up and down out of the sand. Our benchmark is 45%. But over the course of 2018, he averaged 52%. So his sand game is fine according to our benchmarks. We don't really have benchmarks when it comes to stroke gain putting, just because strokes gain is always a figure against the group that you're playing against, the field that you're playing against. So there's no real way to kind of look at that other than it's a cool way to see if maybe putting contributed to Rory's win. And we see in this case, he averaged 1.5 strokes per round over the average of the field, which definitely helped him because he only averaged 0.06 strokes in 2018 per round. So putting was never really something that got it done for Rory. He's always been the one that's had to be sort of tee to green. He's had to be very strong in order for him to win. This particular week, he actually putted very well. And not every round, though. In the first round, he actually putted less than the field, but the remaining 3 rounds, he putted better than the field. Okay, strokes gained, putting we looked at. So scrambling then, for the tournament, he got up and down around the green 65% of the time. In 2018, he was 63% of the time, so very similar there. Our benchmark is getting up and down 55% of the time. And we'll talk a little bit about that in putting when we come up to it later. And then our putting's changed. Our strategy on putting, I've created a different system to help us with our putting that I think simplifies it a great deal. But it's still interesting to kind of look at the pros and see what they've done in their putting. Again, Rory not known to be a very good putter, and yet from 20 to 25 feet in 2018, he made 15% of his putts from that range, and our benchmark is 9%. And those that make less than that from 20 to 25 feet, Brooks Koepka, Jordan Spieth, and Jim Furyk. And I don't know about you guys, but I've never thought of Rory McIlroy being better than Jordan Spieth from 20 to 25 feet. But in 2018, he was, and by quite a bit, by at least 6 points, if not more. From 15 to 20 feet, Rory made 16% of those putts. Our benchmark is 17%, so that becomes the first area in putting where we'd say Rory probably needs to work on a little bit. 10 to 15 feet, he made 28%. Our benchmark is 28%. So dead on our benchmark. So putt as well as Rory did from 10 to 15 feet. From 5 feet, Rory makes 81% of his putts. Our benchmark is 80%. And his putts per round, 28 and a half putts per round. Our benchmark is 30 putts per round. Essentially 1.67 per green. Okay, so those are our benchmarks there. Again, from driving, it's 55%. We need to hit our fairways 55% of the time. For our greens in regulation, we need to hit our greens 65% of the time. Up and down from the sand, 45% of the time. Scrambling, 55% of the time, up and down around the green. And then putting from 5 feet, 80% of the time or higher. Now, when it comes to putting, the difference, the change that we've made in our strategy is if you have time to practice, and maybe I'll just jump back on real quick here as we talk about this. We'll go back to the iPad in a minute. But so really quick on our putting, when we're putting and we have time to putt, we want to make sure that we are working on putts from 5 feet and in. And we want to get as good at that putt as we can. So 5, 4, 3, everything from 5 feet and in, you want to be practicing as much as you possibly can. At the office, wherever. When you're out playing and you've made your putt and you're backing off, drop it down and hit another 5-footer or 2 or 3 of them if there's somebody on the tee. Just use every possible opportunity you have to work on your 5-footers and in. And why am I saying that? Well, you make 80%, the benchmark is 80%, but if we can get that up to 90%, 95%, where these 5-footers become so easy and so second nature for us, it will take pressure off your putting like you won't believe. Not only does it take it off when you've got a 5-footer and in for par or whatever, imagine when you have like a 35-footer. We know that our benchmark from 25 feet is 9%. So if you've got like a 35-footer, we're only talking a make percentage of 5%, 4%, and as you go further back, it's even more than that. So if you have this 5-foot circle, you're looking at literally a 10-foot width around the hole. If that's your target, how much pressure does that take off your lag putting? A ton. I'm telling you, it will take a ton. If you know you can make everything inside 5 feet around the hole, it will take tons of pressure off your lag putting. It takes tons of pressure off your sand game. It takes tons of pressure off your around the green game, your scrambling game. It takes tons of pressure off. And so I've just been thinking about this and thinking about this. If we can all get super amazing, super great from 5 feet and in, it will change your putting life. I guarantee it. The putting green will be nothing to you because you know you can drop your 5-footers. It will change your putting game, guaranteed. So definitely use that system to become a better putter. And then go and practice your lag putts all over. But if you're getting them within 5 feet, you know, this 10-foot, you've got the hole in the middle, and you got 5 feet on either side, that's 10 feet you've got in me. I can't even go 10 feet. Everybody can putt and take the pressure off themselves that way. And then if you know you can make that putt, so distance control and 10 feet wide, you get it anywhere in there, you know your chances are 90, 95% you're going to make that one. That will take pressure off your game, your putting game like you won't believe. I guarantee it. It's been awesome. It's changed my mindset completely. It will change yours. No question about it, okay? So let's dive back into these numbers here with Rory, and we'll make a change there. So this is, I love this part of it. We actually look at the money. I don't know why this is just super interesting to me. Maybe it will be for you. I hope it is. I've gotten a lot of good responses about how we look at the money. So we'll keep doing it until I get told that it's just worn out. But so Rory McIlroy made $1.36 million for his victory at the RBC Canadian Open. And he did that in 258 strokes, which means he made $342,000 a day, which equals to about $68,000 an hour, or $5,300 a stroke, right? Each one of those 258 strokes he made $5,000 on. So for his career, Rory has now made over $47 million. And if you take that 140 cuts made that we talked about, Rory now makes averages $340,000, $340,251 per cut. Okay, so if he makes the cut, that's how much he takes home on average. That's a healthy number. It used to be $320,000. So that money, the money per cut sort of chart that I have down there, and all the stats are courtesy of pgatour.com. If you go to their stats page, it is so fun to geek out there. But if you're looking at this, then Tiger Woods leads this money per cut field. And again, I'm only looking at players that have won this year. And Tiger Woods averages $367,000 per cut. Rory now has moved up to within $27,000 of that at $340,000 per cut. You've got Dustin Johnson at $293,000 per cut. You've got Justin Thomas at roughly $274,000 per cut. And then Brooks Koepka comes in at fifth at $256,000 per cut. So pretty cool stuff. These guys, when they make the cut, they take home a lot of money. That's a lot of money per week, even when you're not winning. So then what I like to do, especially when we're on doing the live here, is look at, I basically go through and look at all the leaders in all the stats. And I go and do little screenshots every place where they're leading. And normally there's just like one or two, but Rory McIlroy is having such a dominant year. He is like all over the place looking at this. So he is leading in strokes gained total, which is T through the green because he putted well, all that. Rory McIlroy is averaging 2.7 strokes he is gaining 2.7 strokes on the field, tee through putting, which is amazing. You can see that most of that, 2.381 of that 2.7 is from tee to green. It's not his putting. Okay, so tee to green, Rory McIlroy is extraordinary, dominant. Okay. Then if you look at the next one here, you've got driving distance. Cameron Champ leads at 316.6, but there's Rory McIlroy, 1.6 yards behind him at 315 yards per drive. That's what he's averaging. He is second in long drive. Okay, you've got now Tony Finau down there at fourth. I always thought that Tony Finau was longer than Rory, not this year. Well, not this year so far, right? And then if we keep going, scoring average, Dustin Johnson leads at 69.1, but there's Rory in third place, 69.18. Dustin Johnson, 69.13. Okay, so very close there. Rory McIlroy's having an excellent scoring year. And if you kind of look at the scoring leaders, it's kind of a who's who of this year. Dustin Johnson, Patrick Cantlay, Rory McIlroy, Webb Simpson, and Brooks Koepka have all been playing well this year. So there they are with their scoring averages. But man, I'll tell you what, yesterday it just looked like Webb Simpson was me playing Rory McIlroy. I mean, just didn't look like he had a chance with Rory the way he was hitting the ball. That must have been hard to watch. Really cool to watch somebody dominate a course like that. But when you're his competitor, that can't feel good. And you know, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing Webb Simpson can do to catch Rory McIlroy. He's just superior in his game. So tough to see. And then the last one here we want to look at, so top 10 finishes for the year. Rory McIlroy has finished 10 times in the top 10, and he's been in 13 events. He has only missed the top 10 3 times this year. That's insanity. So he leads it by 2. The tour average is just 2 top 10s for the year. Okay? So anyway, that's kind of where we're at for that. We'll finish it right there. I'll get back on here with you. So that's it with Rory McIlroy. An amazing performance for sure. I was completely blown away at how dominant he was, how well he played. Congratulations to him. It obviously sets him up for an amazing U.S. Open run at Pebble Beach. I don't know if you're watching go out and check out some of the articles. There's one with Patrick Cantlay showing how deep the rough is there. Ooh, it looks brutal. I don't know why the USGA cannot figure it out, that nobody wants to see the best players in the world look like a bunch of hack amateurs. Nobody wants to see that. I don't know why the USGA isn't getting it. Pebble Beach is a tough track no matter what. Even if the rough is down, you've got the wind and the cold, and that course can just be a monster. The tiny greens, I don't know why you have to grow the rough to knee deep. I can't understand it. I hope they figure it out. I almost said something else, but I hope they can figure it out and just give us a fair test. If it's a little bit harder, fine. But Pebble Beach is Pebble Beach. It doesn't need to be tricked out. It doesn't need to be USGA tricked out. Just let Pebble Beach be Pebble Beach and let us watch the best players in the world go at it, for heaven's sakes. I don't want to see somebody who misses the fairway by 2 feet have to hack it out of the hay sideways after hitting arguably a really good drive that misses the fairway by a foot and then they can't even advance the ball. That's no fun for anyone. So hopefully the USGA's got it figured out, but chances are they don't. They don't seem to listen and they don't seem to care. And frankly, they just don't seem to be that interested in having entertaining golf. They just want to make the PGA Tour pros look like idiots. I don't know if it's jealousy. I don't know what's the motivation behind this, but it makes it very hard to watch sometimes, for sure. So anyway, hopefully it goes well. Thanks for joining me today on Data Access Golf Live Show. Is that what we're calling it? I don't know. We'll call it something. But thanks for being here. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Until next time, Aaron Stewart saying better data always means better golf, especially for the amateurs who are trying to get the most out of their game with very little free time to do so. Till next time, thanks.